here, so we'll just start this meeting in the interest of time. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to CB14's Community Environment, Cultural Affairs, and Economic Development Committee meeting, taking place tonight on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. online via WebEx. My name is Ed Sen, co-chair of this committee, and I'm joined by my colleague, Joel, if you want to quickly introduce yourself.
Joel Siegel, co-chair.
Great. And first on our agenda is the update on the Flatbush African Burial Ground. Thank you, Commissioner Marr, for joining us this evening. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's always good to be at CB14. We've had a great relationship for the 40 years I've been around. So thank you for making time for this. Originally, we were hoping to present the design to the board tonight, but we want to make very certain that everybody has said their piece. And I think that's a goal, certainly of the council member, certainly of us, and I think of the board as well. And the council member has gone to great efforts to make sure that people can be heard. This is a very important project for the board, for the council member, and for Parks. And we want to produce a very good product. We have some experience in this. We are near completion of an African burial ground in East New York at Sankofa Park. And similarly, it had some nice community input, and it's turning out as an absolutely beautiful and reflective space. And that's sort of our goal, to have a sensitive, passive place that is respectful of those that are interred there. And we want something that embraces the community and their contributions to the community. And so we're not quite finished with the design. The council members working on 2 more meetings for people to have input. So one of them will be a virtual meeting. When we have that locked up, we'll get word out through the board and through the council member. That's coming soon. And then on Wednesday, December 18th, from 6 to 8 o'clock at the Lefferts Homestead in Prospect Park will be the final live input meeting. And I want to remind people that can't, make the meetings or that have some contribution toward the design or idea toward the design, they can always write to BK Special Events, one word. That's BK Special Events at Parks, PARKS, .nyc.gov, and that's until the after the 18th meeting. We've had Emmanuel Thingay, who is an award-winning parks designer. He's technically retired, but Emmanuel was very, very passionate about wanting to do this project, and he is of Caribbean descent and African American descent, and he has really embraced this. He's brought some brilliant ideas across, and he's really been listening to the input from the many people we've had contributions for. We did a scope meeting, which is usually just a normal thing, quite a while ago, but with the council member has fostered some other meetings just to make sure that everybody has been heard. And so she has these 2 final meetings. Again, one will happen before the 18th, and we'll get word to you. We're just trying to get the dates aligned for that. But the definite one is Wednesday, December 18th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Lefferts Homestead. And that'll be the final sort of input meeting. And then in January or possibly February, but more likely January, we'll see how the meetings line up with the design. We'll be reaching out to the community board to schedule a presentation to the Parks Committee. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, this is a very, very important project for us. It's a very sensitive project for us. Some things have happened. Brooklyn College did some ground penetrating radar. That's non-invasive radar that tests variations in density. I haven't heard any new news from that. We sort of have a lot of the research complete, the archaeology complete, so that part's been done. when we go to procurement and then go to the actual creation phase, an archaeologist has to be on scene so that we do minimal disturbances to the appropriate places, and we're actually making use of the trees that are there. So we're very, very excited about this. I think you're going to like the concepts that Emmanuel's put together, but we want to get this final input from folks. So that's pretty much everything I have. I'll repeat that email address again. It's BK Special Events, plural, all one word, at parks.nyc.gov. And that meeting, live meeting, is Wednesday, December 18th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Lefferts Homestead in Prospect Park. And I want to thank the board for being so very helpful and cooperative in spearheading this and bringing people together. I very much want to thank the council member for a number of things, for funding this to protect this site. Parkland allocation, it protects a site from future development, things like that. So I think it's very important that people recognize that not only has she funded the project, but she's protecting the actual site. And we're very grateful to the council member for both of those things and for taking those extra steps to make sure that everybody's been heard with their input. So that's pretty much my update, and I thank all of you for your continued cooperation and partnership as you do with all of our projects.
I think everybody knows, but it's Rita Joseph that you're talking about. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Did I not say it by name?
No, it's okay. I think everybody in this meeting knows who you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a hotline on my desk that says Rita Joseph. I could have just. It's right next to the Sean Campbell one, so it's
the most important.
That's right.
Thank you for the update, Commissioner. I just want to acknowledge Brittany Dixon from Assemblymember Cunningham's office, who's joined us as well. I'm just going to turn it over to the board members that are present. Can you take a couple of questions, Commissioner?
I'm here at your disposal. I do have somewhere else to go, but yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll try to make it quick. So the floor is open to board members regarding this update. If there's nothing, I would like, since you are here, Commissioner. Oh, Sean has a question.
I always pause because I'm not a board member and I know it. But I do have a question just about the input that you're accepting at this point, because, and I've discussed this with you, but I'd like to just like note it here. We do get some input on sort of design or desired use for the memorial. But we also have been getting some program ideas, and that feels premature. So if we could just talk about what is being done now, and if and when programming is going to be considered, where that would occur in the process, if at all.
So obviously we want to hear about desired programming, and it would all be, anything that we would do would be sensitive of the fact that it's a burial ground. But there has been input toward that. When you're designing something, you want to understand the potential uses. Obviously, we're not building a sports area or an active area here of any kind. It's a passive park. So we don't mind hearing some input on that. The programming itself isn't part of the capital process, but knowing what the desired programs are so that we can design to that. And what's great about Emmanuel, he has a very good understanding of the culture, so he's able to incorporate some of that input in as well. You're right. We're not at the permitting, for events or anything like that stage. That's something that once we have a completed project, we'll do that through the normal permitting process with parks. But we don't mind hearing ideas on programming so that we're designing to that, within the frame of what we're designing here, a passive, respective, reflective space that is in fact an African burial ground.
Okay, thanks for the additional information.
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner, I'm just going to take this opportunity to ask for a quick update on the Lakeshore Restoration project. I'm just wondering if this project has entered into the design phase and if it's on track based on the timeline that was shared with us previously when your team came before the board.
So I'm not aware of any changes in it. Prospect Park usually does their own presentations and that kind of stuff. And I live near Prospect Park. I live right next to Board 14. So I make sure I know what's going on. I'm unaware of any changes. I know that they're still seeking funding. They have some funding to launch the project, but they're seeking funding for the entire project. Have you seen it at all? Any of the design stuff? Because it's really the conceptual stuff that they have is really, really pretty amazing. There's still a lot of engineering that has to be done and so on, but there's no changes in the initial part that I'm aware of that we gave you back in September.
Got it. Oh, thank you. Hatem, did you have your hand up? Did you have a question?
Yes, if it's possible, I'm not sure if this is right. I would like to ask the commissioner a question about the trees in our streets. Shall I ask him some other time, or can you allow me a minute?
I'll allow it.
Okay, I appreciate it. Commissioner, if you allow me to speak, I love the trees and I love our city really doing great and work planting more trees in the streets. I just have a concern about the metal tag that attached to each tree planted in the trees in the recent years. That metal tag is a strong metal. When the branches grow, they cannot break out of that metal. And if you look at some trees in the streets, you will see how that metal tag is really affecting the growth of that branch of the tree. And it is still going into deep into the branch. I was just curious, is this a way we can remove that metal tags, or in the future replace it with a weaker tag that the branch can break through when it grows?
So it's a very interesting question. As of April of this year, forestry no longer reports to me. It's centralized, but I'm happy to take the question. I will pass that concern on to the forestry division. I will say that from street tree planting to pruning to purchasing trees and so on is managed by very trained foresters. So I can't imagine that they would do something deliberately. I know that aluminum, I know from past experience, because I've been here 40 years, aluminum material is not harmful to trees. And I believe the material that you're talking about is aluminum. But I'll pass that comment on to the street tree planting people and to the commissioner that's in charge of forestry, just so that they know that there's public perception concerns on that. I appreciate that very much.
And
I
then
appreciate it.
specifically,
Thank you.
Hatem, I'm sorry to jump in here, but specifically, if there are trees that you have identified that are struggling thusly, please let the office know. That's what we're there for. So give us the location of the tree by the address in front of which it's planted, and we'll bring it directly to forestry so they can look at those specific trees.
And you can
I
email
would send you,
those addresses to
I
me, and I
would,
can make sure it gets attention. Absolutely.
I would send the office few pictures and more information on the topic once we're done with the meeting. And I really appreciate your help. Thank you.
Okay, I believe that's all the questions for Commissioner Marr this evening. Again, thank you for your time, and yeah, we look forward to future updates for both the African Burial Ground project and learning more about the Lakeshore Restoration. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Joel, who will
Thank you
introduce.
for your time. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. All right, we have our next speaker is Tara Deegan. Is that how you pronounce your name, Tara?
Yep, like the highway.
Okay. And Tara is a senior advisor for government relations and community affairs of the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. And we're going to hear tonight about the lead service line replacement program. And a number of people have gotten notices they have to replace their lead lines that don't have lead lines. So I just did a closing, and just before the closing, they got a notice, and like they had already, the buyer had done an inspection of the property and said that it wasn't lead, whatever it was, and but then we got things got a little upset. So go ahead, Tara.
Okay, that's good to know. Let me share my screen and I'm going to go through just the rudimentary, what is a service line, just so everybody's aware. Some people actually don't know this, might be familiar to you, but I'll just go through it. And it also might help with your any residents that ask you. So let me just see if this works. Let's see. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so for anybody that doesn't know, what is a water service line? The water service line is the pipe that brings the city's, that connects your building to the city's water main in the street. That brings everybody fresh water. People have a sewer line and a water line. We're just talking about water right now. Sewer lines are different. And so homeowners in New York City actually own the line in its entirety. So homeowners are responsible for repairing and replacing lines from their home all the way out into the street. So a lot of people don't know that, but that's there's a few cities in the country where that's the case, and that's the case here in New York City. So it does give us a little bit of challenges when we're trying to replace them because they are privately owned. So in terms of what New York City does to protect people's health and to protect people from lead in drinking water, we have some of the best water in the world. We have reservoirs some of them are as far as 125 miles away. We have pristine protected lands. And I personally take great pride in talking about our water. There's 6,000 people in our agency that work really, really hard to deliver that water. And we deliver it lead-free. All of our water meets or exceeds federal or state health standards. We treat our water with something called orthophosphate. So it's similar to a baking soda. And what it does is it coats the pipes to prevent any metal from leaching. So we have a really robust anti-corrosion system that's been really effective at preventing any metals from leaching into the water. So that, as that travels through the pipes, it coats the pipes. It coats not only the service line, but it will coat pipes within the home. And that is extremely effective in preventing metals from leaching into the water. But the new thinking now, and it's not so new, but there are more stringent rules when it comes to federal standards. And everybody's kind of saying, well, no amount of lead is a good amount of lead. And that's true. Anytime lead gets disturbed, you are at risk of elevated lead levels in your drinking water. And it's particularly could be damaging to pregnant women and young children. So we always urge people with young children in the home, if they have a lead service line or if they know they have lead plumbing, to make sure that they flush their lines or get a filter or consider replacing their lead service lines. Lead service lines are typically only found in buildings that are smaller. They're kind of 1 to 4 family homes because lead gets brittle and weaker. It doesn't have the strength to support very large buildings. So you're not really going to find that in big apartment buildings, but you will find it in smaller homes. Homes that were built before 1961, lead service lines were banned in 1961. So if you do have a lead service line, your lead service line is probably old. It probably has reached the end of its useful life. You should consider replacing it if you have one. So for right now, we have a few things in the works to offer lead service line replacements while we do water main projects in the street. So DEP has an in-house crew where we actually do this with DEP employees. We will replace certain water lines in certain areas. When we find a lead service line in the street, we will offer a homeowner to replace it in full. I highly recommend homeowners to take advantage of that. It can save them potentially $10,000 or more in replacement costs. So I really urge people to take advantage of that if we knock on your door. We also have emergency construction contractors. If they're ever doing construction on a water main in the street and they find a lead service line, they will also offer to replace it in full. And then DDC is about to start a pilot program. I have to look at the locations again. I believe there might be a couple locations in Brooklyn. I'm not 100% sure where, but I'll look into that and see if I can get you more information. But they're going to be starting some projects that when they do water main replacement work for us, when they find lead service lines in the street, they're going to offer a full replacement. So, water service lines to replace can be upwards of $10,000. So I always tell people that if it were me, I work for DEP and I'm a homeowner. If it were me, I would jump at that chance to get this free service line replacement. This is free. This is at no cost to the homeowner. They will never see anything on their bill. They will never see a bill. They will never be asked for payment. So I highly recommend that people take advantage of that. So in terms of a replacement program, we are working off of certain federal grants that we're getting. So we have some funding that was received through the federal bipartisan infrastructure law. That goes to New York State, and then New York State reallocates that to municipalities. We have a limited cap that we have to work within for this. It's $24 million a year. It actually doesn't go that far considering the amount of lead service lines that we believe we have. So we are just replacing in certain areas now to comply with the grant requirements for New York State. We're currently not in Brooklyn at the moment, but we are working on contracts to go into Queens and Brooklyn next year. And we do have certain income and environmental justice and lead pipe density kind of parameters we have to work within. So we're looking at things neighborhood by neighborhood right now. So if we're not in your neighborhood and if we're not offering a free replacement, what can a homeowner do if they can't replace their service line right now? We do have a map online. And if the easiest place to go to, and I'll give you that website in a moment, the easiest place to go to is our general lead page, which is nyc.gov/DEP/lead. There's a link to this map. You can put in your address and search your address to see if you have a lead service line. If you didn't get the letter, if you're a renter, that's a good way to just kind of gauge what do we think your service line is made of. If you do have a lead service line, you have a lead service line, flushing your plumbing is the surest way to get the lead out. All it really takes is kind of like in the morning, if you're running the faucet, if you are washing your hands, if you take a shower, if you run the dishwasher, if you're flushing a toilet, usually that's all it takes to kind of flush the lines. But I always tell people to flush for a few minutes. Make sure you flush until your tap is cool and cold. And that usually gets enough of that orthophosphate in there that it'll coat the lines and it'll move anything out of there. We also have a program. It is called the American Water Resource Service Line Protection Program. For anybody that's not familiar, I highly recommend this program just in general to anybody. I've actually used it a couple times in the past year. Plumbers came out to my house within an hour, and they fixed a clog that I had in my sewer line twice, and they did it for free. I was not charged a thing. So there is a monthly fee on your water bill, but I highly recommend that just for general issues, especially with your sewer lines. But they also, if you have normal wear and tear on your lead service line, and if it needs to be repaired, the city code says that you cannot repair a lead service line. You must replace it in full. So if you have this protection program, American Water Resources will come out and replace your service line in full if it's in need of repair. I don't think they cover the full cost of it, but they can help offset costs of that. Residents can also call 311 to request a free residential lead test kit. So that's the best way to go about doing that. I know I had another question from someone else about this tonight in another area of the city. But this is the best way to request a lead test kit. We will mail it out to people with instructions. You mail that back to us. We test it, and then we'll give you a detailed letter on what we found in the water. So for more information, the best place to go, this has all the information on it and then some. It also has all the information in the letters that recently went out. It's nyc.gov/DEP/lead. And as you mentioned before, all homeowners who we think through our tap cards had lines that were either made of lead or galvanized steel. Galvanized steel has lead in it, or an unknown material. They received a notification this fall. The letter provides more information on what they can do to reduce their risk of lead exposure. It also gives a link. We have a permitting system that we've now opened up to homeowners. If you don't have lead and you know you don't have lead, you can go on that link and go in there and let us know that it's not lead and just provide us with some photos. And we'll change our tap card to make sure that it has the most updated information. Some of our tap cards are over 100 years old. Sometimes people haven't pulled the proper permits. Sometimes the permits have gotten lost depending on the age of the house. So some of our tap cards are not totally accurate. This is the information that we had available. And we erred on the side of caution to everybody we might think would have lead. The other thing is renters. Some renters are like, what letter? I never got a letter. What if I have a lead service line? What if my landlord won't replace it? So I always tell renters, listen, you can be the best advocate for us. You can try to get your landlord to replace their service line. If you can't, you can do the same thing that a homeowner would do. Run your tap, cleaning aerators, using cold water. Do not, you can't boil out lead. So all of those things can help a renter as well. There are certain pitcher filters that can remove lead. They have to be certified to remove lead, but there's pitcher filters that you can use. And for the most part, that does, a very, very good job of weeding out any lead that might be in your drinking water. So that is, I'm going to stop sharing just so I can see you all. Hopefully there we go. So hopefully that made sense, and hopefully I answered some questions of yours. I'm happy to answer any other additional questions you might have on that. Hopefully I answered your questions on what to do if we sent you a letter in error, but let me know if I can assist with that.
Thank you, Tara. That was really great. And you did answer the questions that I was trying to accumulate here. But a couple of questions. Can someone who owns a home go into their basement and see where the water's coming into the meter and tell whether it's lead or not? Is there,
For the most part, yes. You can actually do a scratch test, and if you'd like, I can send you a flyer on that. So we actually have a flyer that it explains to you how to do a scratch test or a magnet test, and then the steps to take to submit that to DEP. So I think that will be helpful. I'll send that over to you, and if you could get the word out, if anybody needs that would be wonderful. For the most part, you can tell. It's very possible people could have a partial, which means that maybe part of the lead line was removed at some point. It's not a end-all be-all, but for the most part, if you do a scratch test in your basement and you see that it's not lead, your line is probably not lead.
And my second question is, how prevalent are lead lines in New York City?
We think it's about 10% of our lead lines.
Wow.
So we have about 1 million lines citywide. We think it's in the range of 100,000-ish, 150,000. And as you said, we did believe that our number, we were very liberal with these letters, not that I wanted to, because I got a lot of phone calls, but we sent out about 250,000 letters to people. Erring on the side of caution, trying to comply with these new federal guidelines. This is the first year that we've been required to do that by law, by the lead and copper rule. That's the EPA's new law. That went into, we found out that that was finalized and went into effect as of October 16th. And we then had 30 days to, as of that date, to get letters out. So it was an uphill battle, but that will also be going out every year to people.
So do you think you have the resources, the money to do 100, 150, or what percentage of that?
No. I think so. We have essentially 10 years to replace all of our lines or to make sure that they're replaced. It doesn't mean that we'll be going in and replacing everyone's. I think it remains to be seen, determined, depending on income of how we're going to require replacements. It's possible there'll be legislation in the future mandating this, maybe for the sale of a house, or I don't know, but it's been thrown about and talked about. I personally, being not a very wealthy homeowner, I would have never been able to afford that when I was buying my house, and I probably wouldn't be able to afford that selling it. So I understand the burden on people trying to change that out. At the same time, it is private property. You are responsible for these lines. We do have to get special waivers to get onto private property when we change these. So it's, there's a lot of things that complicate it.
So get in there if you got one while the money's
Totally. If someone gets an offer, I always say this. I'm like, listen, I see how the sausage is made. And I'm a city homeowner. If DEP offered this to me, I begged them. I said, please let me be your test case. I actually don't have a lead line, but I would do it in a minute. And I will say it's, we're going to be doing a before and after video, and to show people what your property looks like after. And it does, your property almost looks better after we do the work. It's new cement, everything's cleaned up. People are a little bit nervous about the city being on their property. What's it going to look like? It can be a little bit jarring as the work is being done. But I think putting together that video and having before and after pictures on the website will help people immensely.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Joel, I'm just going to jump in here.
Go ahead, Ed.
So, Tara, thank you for that presentation, and thank you for taking the time to come before our committee. As Sean alluded to, this was something that I uncovered just through a news article, which I shared in the chat, the Gothamist article. You mentioned that approximately 10% of New York City, I guess, housing, New York City buildings are lead-based. According to the New York, the article itself, which is attributing a report from the New York League of Conservation and Voters, they created a map as well, and it's estimating it to be 30% of the pipes delivering water to New York City buildings that may have lead. Did you have any thoughts or, I guess, corrections to their find? Yeah,
I think that is probably the data we have and the tap cards we have, and given that we sent out over 250,000 letters, that would sort of amount to that 25%, 30%. I don't think it's actually that high. I think there's a big component of the unknowns. And I think a lot of the unknowns are not going to be lead. And I think that, like you're saying, I think there's a lot of known lead that we think is known that turns out that the tap card was wrong and it's actually not lead. That's my hope. And I think that's kind of the data we're starting to see, is that it's actually a little bit lower of a number than we think. That's my hope. But we're just really starting to delve into this now, as we're starting to dig in and get a sense of this and starting to launch this program. So as we go forward, we'll start to see percentages and start to get a more realistic sense of what that number actually is.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification. And yeah, hopefully you can come back to the committee and share some updated information.
Sure.
Yeah, just taking a glance at the map myself for the CB14, yeah, I was surprised with the number of, I guess, based on the data that was present, the number of homes that had potentially lead pipes, which prompted our request to have you do this presentation. I will cede the floor to other board members that may have other questions.
And I do want to point out, just so I don't forget, New York City's distribution system has no lead in it, so you are getting your water delivered lead free. So that's a plus there to begin with. I just want to make sure people understand that there are some other cities that are changing out lead within their distribution systems, but there's no lead in our supply or distribution system. So that's half the battle right there. And then I also just want to point out that I don't know of any known case of lead poisoning from water ever in New York City. 99% of lead poisoning cases come from lead paint chips, or actually spices or makeup or other things. So I do want to assuage people's fears a little bit that we are very confident that the water you're drinking is the best in the world, even if you have lead pipes. It's very good to be vigilant. It's very good to take those steps to make sure that you're weeding out anything. But for the most part, a simple flushing of your pipes, you really don't have anything to worry about. I don't want people to be panicking if they think they have a lead service line and they can't afford to change it right now. I think this is all being done out of an abundance of caution.
Anybody else? We got any hands? No one? Going once, going twice. So thank you very much, Tara. That was really informative. And so we thank you for coming tonight and making that presentation. So you'll send the scratch test info to the community board.
I'll send you that, and we have another general lead flyer, so I'll send you both those flyers, and then of course you have my contact information. Let me know if you need anything else. I'm happy to answer that. Anything else you have.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good
Thank you for
evening.
having me. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye. So do we have any number 3 other business?
Yes, Joel, I do. I would like to make a public service announcement. I'd like to highlight that this is courtesy of the Cortelyou Road Merchants Association. This was something that I had previously requested from our congressional partners in sharing information. So I'm just going to take a minute to read what the Cortelyou Road Merchants Association shared regarding the Corporate Transparency Act. And this is just something that all businesses, including co-ops and condo corporations, should be aware of. So to avoid federal fines, the company should file for free. They have until December 31st, but this was an act that was, the Corporate Transparency Act was enacted to curb illicit finance. And the act requires that businesses report information about individuals who can own or control, this information should be reported to the U.S. Department of Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, otherwise known as FinCEN. So any newly formed businesses must do so within, 90 days of being registered within the state. And businesses will be fined for not registering the appropriate information. It's free to complete the form. I've shared this information with the office as well. And also New York City's Department of Small Business Services is hosting webinars. They've had two they've hosted one today, and there's an upcoming one on December 10th. And these webinars will be recorded and be available. The recordings will be made available along with the presentation deck in various languages in addition to English. So I just wanted to flag that and make sure that for those that are tuning in and watching this later, that they are aware of this new federal requirement. So there have been some questions that some folks that were interested in this. So I'm glad the city is stepping up and sharing more information about this. Any questions?
Perhaps we can post something about it. You know, I have to deal with this because the co-ops are being required, the boards of the co-op are being required to provide personal information about board members. So co-op and condo buildings around the city are scurrying they have to comply by next month. You said 90 days. That's for new businesses, but
Right.
existing businesses have until next month.
Right, the end December 31st. In the chat, I've shared the SBS link regarding the Corporate Transparency Act, and I believe they'll have the recordings and additional information and materials in other languages as well available.
You said you already sent it to the office, but I'll make sure we get it posted on the website, especially before you make your report out to the full board so that you can, refer people to the links there.
But I do want to highlight that this was shared widely through just the Cortelu Merchants Association newsletter. So yeah, that was wonderful. And I was able to summarize that. It is a lot to wrap your head around. I don't have any other business, but I would like to ask if Brittany from Assembly Member Cunningham's office would like to address this assembly.
Well, in terms of we just have some general updates that I could share in terms of like events moving forward. They wouldn't really be surrounding the topic specifically of community environment. Would that be okay, or?
If you will be present at our general board meeting, that would be that information would be most welcomed there.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. But thank you for
No
attending.
problem. Yeah, no problem, no problem.
Sean, any last words?
Yeah, the only thing I just want to clarify that tonight's agenda, we did have an update on Lakeshore and an update on all capital projects in the district. And it was something that Prospect Park Alliance came to us and asked us if we could situate a meeting so that they could do that annual update that they do. And then Marty reached out to see if he could do his update. But, the Alliance got pulled into Borough Board tonight. And then Christian Zimmerman, it's his wedding anniversary tonight. So a couple of those things fell through, and I just wanted to let you know that I had sort of expected a fuller Flatbush African Burial Ground report. That is what Commissioner Marr said would be coming at the next meeting. So I think we're going to turn around and have a pretty quick repeat meeting, a pretty quick meeting of your committee either in January or early February, and we'll get those items reported out at that upcoming meeting. Yeah, I think that was it. So thank you for facilitating Commissioner Marr's presentation.
Well, it was helpful to know about the upcoming just dates for just general feedback and
Yeah.
And hearing from DEP was also helpful in sharing out about the Corporate Transparency Act before it's the end of the year. I know there's a lot on folks' plates, and we probably have one more full week before folks are signed off for holidays. So I'm glad we're able to convene this month, and then we'll see what the new year brings and move forward from there.
Sounds like a plan. Appreciate you all.
All right. Thank you so much. This meeting will be adjourned at 7:12 p.m. Good night, everybody.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
Bye.